Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dreamcatcher podcast, a place where your dreams can find a voice. The ability to interpret, express, and respond to our emotions is essential for success. Some experts say that it's even more important than our IQ. Unfortunately, not many of us were taught how to identify and process our emotions, and that can make life a lot harder. To tell us more about how we can build our emotional intelligence, I invited Dr. Marc Brackett, who wrote a hugely popular book called Permission to Feel. Dr. Marc Brackett is the founding director of the Yale Center of Emotional Intelligence and a professor in the Child Studies Center at Yale University. He has published over 150 scholarly articles, received numerous awards, and is regularly featured in popular media outlets. In this interview, Marc is going to inspire us with a new mindset around the power of emotions, offering advice on how we can understand our own and others' emotions. He also provides innovative strategies to boost emotional intelligence and undo unhealthy patterns we may have developed over the years. As always, if you like what you heard, please don't forget to like, rate, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Thank you. Hello, Marc. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. How are you?
I'm doing perfect. I just want to say I so appreciate you making the time to be here and share your immense knowledge on all things emotions. We're just so excited to hear what you have to share with us.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. So I just finished reading your book, Permission to Feel, and all I can say is, wow. I mean, what an eye-opener it's been. I consider myself a pretty self-aware person, having read a lot of books on social and emotional intelligence. But what I learned from your book really took things to the next level, and I'm sure that will be the case for everyone who reads it. So thank you so much for writing such a great guide.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
All right. So tell me, Marc, what motivated you to write this book? I mean, I know your story after reading the book, but why don't you tell our listeners about what were some of the early experiences that led to your curiosity about emotional intelligence?
Yeah, well, as you know from reading my book, I had a pretty difficult childhood, from abuse to bullying. And I was blessed that I had an uncle, in my life, my Uncle Marvin, who, the title of my book is Permission to Feel. And I feel blessed that he was the adult who gave me that permission to be my true, full feeling self. So when I was feeling alienated and angry and sad and all these other strong, mostly unpleasant feelings, he validated them. He didn't tell me to toughen up, or he wasn't afraid to talk about them. And, as I got older, and suffered more, with anxiety, in college and beyond college, I started thinking about my relationship with my uncle and how helpful he was. And I realized that what I wanted to do was help my uncle take the ideas that he had been developing, 30 years prior in his little classroom in upstate New York, and make them a full-fledged thing. And so pulled him out of retirement, and we started writing a curriculum. And that was the beginning of my career, which led me to then get my doctorate in psychology and eventually, get to a place like Yale and have that center.
Oh, that's great. Did you feel the need to go through any therapy or anything to deal with any of the issues that you had to go
I'm
through?
a firm believer that you get all the help you need in life.
Mhm.
And so I was blessed, also, in that early in my life, while my parents didn't really know what to do with me or how to manage, help me manage my feelings, they did give me the opportunity to see a therapist. Very helpful as a young child. And then even as a college student, I went for therapy, and I've done coaching, in my professional life. I think it's always good to have somebody with whom you can talk about your feelings.
Now, as you said, I think you're really lucky to have had parents allow you to get to reach out to therapists and get that kind of guidance at such an early phase in their life, because that isn't the case for so many people. They don't have that kind of compass directing them to places where they can kind of develop themselves emotionally.
Yeah, I think my parents were psychologically minded. Like they knew, like this is out of my territory. I don't know how to deal with this. My kid is suffering. And so they were smart to get me the help that I needed.
Mm-hmm.
But I think importantly, part of the reason why I wrote my book is that I feel we need an emotion revolution. And so, while my therapist was helpful, in, fifth or sixth grade, when I was, really going through my difficult times, I went back home and my parents were fighting a lot and had anxiety problems that weren't dealt with very well. And I went to school and I got bullied there. And so, it doesn't necessarily help to move a child forward when only the child is getting the help that they need, right? Like the people who are around the child, the teachers, the parents, the community also need to be building their emotional intelligence skills. And that's kind of my vision.
And what advice do you have for people who live in a family unit or even a workplace environment where people aren't that, they're not that emotionally mature? Like what can they do if they don't have any control over the people around?
It's hard. It's very hard because if everybody's not playing by the same kind of guidelines, then you're like, if your boss doesn't believe that how you feel matters, right? It's hard to be motivated to go to work each day, right? Because part of that relationship is built upon trust. It's built upon, can I be my true self with you? Can I be authentic with you and real? And if you don't feel that way, it's hard. And so I think I wrote something in my book around that. Maybe in the future, when people are going for their job interviews, they'll say things like, well, how does it feel to work for you? Right? How does it feel to work in this organization?
Yeah.
And the answer to that will, in part, support people in making the best decisions for their careers.
Yeah, because I think that has a huge impact on you. You spend so much time in the office. Well, right now, most people are working remotely, but even if you're meeting on Zoom or whatever, you still feel that energy, from other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Mark, why do emotions have such a big impact on us? Why does it have this power to totally override rational thinking? Because sometimes we know things on a conscious level, but no matter what we do, we go with how we feel. So, why does that happen?
Well, I think a couple of things. Sometimes we don't go with how we feel, right? And that can be problematic. We go with how we think. But I think, really getting at your question is that what we should all understand is that emotions are the drivers, right, of so much of our operation. So they drive how we think, or at least inform how we think. They drive, our decision making. They drive whether or not we want to talk to people and be in relationship with them. Our physical and our mental health. Our creativity, our everyday kind of performance. And so that's, in chapter 2 of my book, I really go into a lot of detail about that because I feel like people need to hear the science. And, the stories, my own story, it does resonate with people, and I felt the need to be authentic in my own book. But a lot of people, they're going to make decisions around teaching emotional intelligence, whether it be a school or a workplace, based on the science, right? Does this make a difference? Does it help people think more clearly? Does it help people have better health? Does it help people make and build better relationships?
Mm-hmm.
And does it improve the bottom line of the company? And the answer is yes to all of the above. And it's also important to define these concepts. When we talk about like that person is emotional, right? It's like, that has a negative connotation, right? It means that they cry a lot, that they're, histrionic, right? That they can't control their feelings. But when we say that person has emotional intelligence, right, it says, oh, that person uses their emotions wisely. That person is aware of their own and other people's emotions. That person has language to describe emotions. That person has strategies to manage emotions in helpful ways. Mm-hmm. And that's the framework that we operate from, is that when we learn how to use our emotions wisely, we can achieve our goals. We can build and maintain healthy relationships. We can have greater life satisfaction.
Mm-hmm. So it's about maintaining that equilibrium.
It's about being an emotion scientist, right? And so when you're an emotion scientist about your own and other people's feelings, you're curious, you're open, you're flexible, you want to get specific and granular about your emotions, as opposed to, what I call the emotion judge, who's closed and critical, who, tells people how they're feeling or judges them for their feelings, thinks emotions are good and bad. Want to move away from that thinking and move towards the thinking that emotions are valuable sources of information.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love the term emotional scientist, and the framework that you created around that, the ruler skills of an emotional scientist. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I was very fortunate that I was the student of the founders of the theory of emotional intelligence, Peter Salovey and Jack Mayer. And so the ruler is an outgrowth of their research, which is that there are 5 discrete skills that we can learn and apply in our everyday lives to be healthier, happier, and more effective. And that's recognizing our own and others' emotions. So being aware of how you're feeling, aware of how I'm feeling. It's understanding the causes and the consequences of our emotions, knowing how and when to label our emotions in specific and accurate ways, and how to express our emotions to people in ways that communicate how we feel. And then finally, the skill of regulating. Do I have the strategies to manage my emotions, so that I can deal with life's ups and downs and help other people manage their stress, help my child deal with their frustration or annoyance.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for breaking that down for us. You know what was my favorite part? It was the chapter where you wrote about emotional vocabulary, about expanding our emotional vocabulary. I mean, as a writer, I'm kind of biased because I have a love for words, but I thought it's so interesting that just by simply having the right word to describe how we feel, that can actually heal us, that can actually help us transform our state. So I thought that was absolutely brilliant. It gave me a lot of breakthroughs, because I remember, I read something about how the ancient Greeks had different ways to describe love, because I'm sure you've heard of that. They've got they break it down to different kinds of love. That's an example of how there are so many shades within that emotion of love. So I just really love that part of the book.
Thank you. I appreciate that. For me, it's freedom. I always argue that it is, a human right to have the words to describe your inner experiences. And, we learn vocabulary, for math and science, but what about the vocabulary that gives our life meaning? The vocabulary that helps us to communicate our needs to the people that we care about and that we need support from. And also, it's a guide towards supporting people and regulating their emotions effectively. I always joke about the difference between being stressed and anxious and overwhelmed. And, they're different. And we all just use the common term stressed, but yet maybe we're feeling something different. And then we wonder why all the stress management strategies that we were using aren't working. It's not because those strategies don't work. It's because probably you're using the wrong strategy to support the actual real feeling that you're having.
Yeah, and I think these are the words that people see in pop culture and in the media. So that's why they tend to use
Mm-hmm.
few of them, that they're exposed to.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Yeah. So how can they expand their emotional vocabulary? Do you have any quick tips
Yeah, I mean, as you know,
besides reading a book?
well, the inside cheat sheet, right, has the mood meter tool,
Oh
which was
yeah, the mood meter. Oh, I absolutely love the mood meter. Yeah.
so that tool was originally developed by my colleague David Caruso, and then we expanded it together
Mhm.
to get these 4 colors with the feeling words. We also have an app called the Mood Meter app that is available to download, and we're actually building a new version of that app as I speak. That's going to
Okay.
be super cool with lots of different strategies to help people have greater well-being.
What is it called? What is the name of the app?
Can't share that name yet, but
Okay.
you can go,
Who's the other
but
one? That
it's just moodmeterapp.com.
moodmeterapp.com.
Yeah,
Okay.
you just go to moodmeterapp.com and you can download it for Android or for iOS.
Okay.
And the new one will be released soon. And we're still in the naming process of it.
Okay.
It's beyond the mood meter. It's the mood meter with strategies.
Oh, great. That sounds exciting.
It's going to be very cool. I'm very, very excited about it.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out for that. If we've had a difficult childhood or if we didn't have very good role models, is there a way to undo unhealthy patterns that we may have picked up in our younger years?
Definitely. The good news is that our brains are always in learning mode if we want them to be. The good news is that we can learn new language, we can learn new strategies and try to apply those strategies on a daily basis, right? To support us in having greater mental health, and wellness. Um, I think a lot about this because I didn't have a healthy emotional development, until I was later in my teens when my uncle came into my life. And the role models that I had didn't have, my parents didn't have an emotion education. I always make the parallel to the martial arts because I became quite skilled in the martial arts.
Mhm.
I have a 5th-degree black belt in a Korean martial art called Hapkido. And,
No one's
there's a
messing with
yellow,
you.
there you go. There's a yellow belt, a blue belt, a red belt, a black belt, and 1st degree. And you have to learn all these kicks and punches. Um, and I always thought, like, where do we get that for our emotional life? We get what we call, the informal learning, which is observing our parents, observing our teachers, television, social media. And there's no guarantee that you're learning the helpful stuff there. And so that means that most of us, are recipients, of lots of unhelpful ways of dealing with our feelings, and my mother, for example, whenever she was upset, she go, oh, I'm having a breakdown. So I just heard I heard my mother saying I'm having a breakdown over and over and over again, as a kid.
Yeah,
And then I
and
was
you
on
absorb that like a sponge when you were a kid.
yeah.
Yeah.
Even about 5 years ago, I was on a flight with somebody that was really overwhelmed, and she said, "How you doing?" I'm having a breakdown. It's like, there goes mommy.
Yeah.
And so, I caught myself and I'm like, "Oy, Mark, come on. You got better strategies than that."
So even
And
you have to remind yourself sometimes.
every day, you kidding me?
Yeah.
Because, we all go into survival mode,
Oh, yeah.
especially in these very
I'm
difficult
glad you
times.
say that.
Living
Because
in a
there's this pressure
pandemic.
to be perfect all the time, right? Especially in someone like you. I mean, you in this profession, people would expect you to be like Zen all the time.
Yeah, I always tell people I'm emotionally a basket case. Like, oh, that's good. It means I can be
Yeah,
messed up. I'm like, yeah,
teach what we most need to learn.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's all good. This is why this work is life's work.
Mhm.
Always people say, well, like, now that I've read your book, am I emotionally intelligent? I'm like, you like maybe 1 point higher, right? You got to read it 10 times and you got to practice it for the next 10 years. And
Mm.
then you'll get, more skilled. Um, and I think actually, living during the last year in this pandemic, has been the ultimate teacher of emotional intelligence,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Because so many of us who thought, okay, I got these skills, I'm done. And then we're, locked up in our homes with our partners that we're not used to being with all day long, with other relatives. We don't go to work, kids, dogs, whatever it is. And all of a sudden you're like, I really need more training in emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
That means it's, we're all works in progress, and it keeps us having a growth mindset.
Absolutely. Totally agree with you. I mean, I'm an aunt, and I have a niece and nephew, and I see them growing up, and sometimes I'm concerned about the way that they are parented. I mean, what can someone like me in my position do to have a positive influence on their emotional development? Because I mean, obviously I'm not their parent, so
Mhm.
what can I do to help somebody like that?
You can be an Uncle Marvin
Oh
or
yes, of
or,
course.
or Aunt Celine. Um, and so I think it's about being the role model, right?
Yeah, I'm
And
trying.
so, I mean, that's the best you can do. And also be a good listener. Be that person. If you're the person that they want to go to, right? Then you've done your job.
Yeah.
And so what is it? What will it take? What will you need to do in order to be that person, right? That your nieces and nephews go to talk about their feelings. That's something you can think about for the next couple of years. And then practice it.
Yeah, I mean, I've left the door open. Like, I can't force them, so yeah. Plus, they see the work
You
that
can't force it, but you don't want to be passive about it either, right? You don't want to just leave your door open. You want to invite people in.
yeah. Yeah, I know. I
So,
know.
it starts with that simple question, like asking them how they're feeling, right? And really listening, not being the judge, being the compassionate emotion scientist aunt, and then growing from there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely going to do that. My niece is old enough. I mean, she's 18, so I can start doing that with her, but my nephew's much younger. So, going to wait for him to grow up a little bit. So, what can we do?
Okay.
What can we do to increase awareness about the importance of regulating our emotions, especially if we're in a leadership position? We're a parent, a teacher, or a leader of an organization. What are your suggestions? Where can we start?
Well, I think the it all starts with giving ourselves and everyone the permission to be their true, full feeling selves. And I think that's the core, of the work, is acknowledging that how we feel matters, not judging those feelings. There's no such thing as a good or a bad emotion, and just like exuding that and accepting of people's feeling states. I think that leads us to kind of being those curious emotion scientists, which leads us to helping ourselves and the people we care about to develop the skills of emotional intelligence. And I think it's just an iterative process. It's like every day doing that check-in with oneself, checking with other people, listening, not trying to solve their problems for them, but co-construct and support them, and thinking differently, or learning a new strategy to help them manage their feelings. And I think it's about making it an everyday practice.
Mm.
And I think that's the way we can grow individually. It's the way we can grow collectively.
Yeah. I think like also really holding that space, right, for people, and just like as you said, just listen to them and encourage them to talk.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's not, it's effortful, because we have to be a little bit vulnerable, right? We have to give a little bit of ourselves, and we have to demonstrate that we're not, happy all the time.
Yeah.
But I think that's what we have to do. We have to demonstrate that we're
Vulnerable.
real feelings people.
Yeah, and that's hard for people because they want to show that they have it all together, and they don't want to seem like, because they would consider that to be weak, especially, people who consider themselves really masculine, you know.
but that when you have it all together, that means, first, it doesn't exist. That's lying to oneself, right, and other people. But also, it doesn't make you the best teacher of other people, because the parent who's always like, Daddy's great today, and the teacher who's always like, Mr. Brackett is feeling fabulous today, right? That is not being real, because life is a roller coaster of emotions. And so the more, real you can be, and the more you can demonstrate your comfort level speaking about feelings and then using strategies to regulate them, to me, that's the golden ticket.
Yeah. Perfect. Marc, this has been wonderful. I just want to say that the work that you're doing is so important, and I'm so glad that I've had the opportunity to share it on my platform. So thanks.
Thank you so much.
Before you go, I just want to mention to everybody, for those of you who want to learn more about Marc and purchase his book, you can visit marcbrackett.com. That's Brackett with a double T, and I will add the link in the description box below. Marcus, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, just thank you. And I hope that you can help support the emotion revolution that we need so badly.
Oh, I'm there with you, Marc. I am. All right. You have a great day.
Nice to meet you, Celine. Thank you.
Bye.